Let's go.
I do work on urban agriculture, social justice, and broadly questions concerning equity and power issues in the food system. For me, I guess a simple way that I want to talk about those two themes intersecting is about power. And power structures in our world that create systems where some people and some groups and some regions have more access to food, have greater food sovereignty, who have more power in the food system than others. So that's the way that I personally make bridges between the field of geography, which has subfields that very much focus on power structures, and agricultural development. Geography, of course, is about scale and space and spatial relationships. It's not only about maps. This also is kind of looking at the relationships between different places and peoples at different scales. So, for example, if we talk about urban agriculture policy in a city, that's connected to agricultural policy at a national scale, that's connected to global food policy, for example. And so that's kind of a scalar dynamic. So the book, Beyond the Kale, Urban Agriculture and Social Justice Activism in New York City, which I wrote with my colleague Nevin Cohen, is really about seeing the work and leadership of, at that time we used the terms people of color and women. When we were writing the book, we could see that a lot of very high profile groups and people who are acquaintances and friends of ours as well, also white people, to be frank. And we felt and knew that this was not the face of urban agriculture exclusively, and that an erroneous portrayal of white leaders in urban agriculture at that time was detracting from knowing that there were longtime leaders in urban ag in this city and many other cities throughout the United States who are people of color and women, as we stated, leading this work. We also argue in the book that simply having a garden does not erase oppressive forces that keep people and groups underprivileged. We need to actually look at the structure of racism in our society in order to tackle that. And then through this book, we're showing the ways that folks are doing just that, but in very specific and explicit ways. This book is not about how to grow food. This is about examples and lessons learned from people who are using urban agriculture to fight for social justice. We learn lessons about not only the ways that the folks that we profile in the book are doing this through policy engagement and policy advocacy, through collaborations with other community groups, through youth education. It's very common for researchers to conclude a study or a paper with their recommendations for future research without ever asking people that they've spoken with in their interviews what they think about that question. And so we ask people directly. We are social scientists. How might we help you, or can we help you? Maybe the answer is no. And so we learned some very important lessons that I know that I've continued to heed, I should say, as I've continued to do research and collaborations on urban agriculture and other topics. I'm currently working on a study with a number of colleagues in France that is looking at social equity and social justice concerns for immigrant and racialized farm workers in the south of France. There are many people who are working in agriculture who are immigrants to France. We're also very aware that in France, to speak about race is controversial and taboo. So we are looking at the reality of farm workers through the lens of race as a social power construction. Also paying attention to writings and thinking of many people throughout the last century who are French and Francophone writers who have really been the foreground thinkers about race as a power structure. Though the study is not about urban agriculture, it's about rural agricultural labor. The broader picture is that we're looking at urban agriculture through a lens of social justice that pays attention to people's identities and the ways that that influences their experiences in a given place that they're living. The focus of my work on urban agriculture in the United States is really placed there, and we can begin to think about kind of similar patterns in other places in the world. So I'm hoping that more broadly this work can also help kind of infuse into thinking about urban agriculture and social justice in different places. Understanding national urban agriculture policy and the way that this is directly impacting either racial equity on the ground through urban agriculture or access to government services and policy programs for groups led by people of color is something that I very much hope can inform future thinking and policy and action about urban agriculture. What does it mean to think about a successful urban agriculture system if we don't think about one of the very fundamental systems of inequity and power differential in the United States, which is race as a power structure? And so my hopes, I suppose, for urban agriculture as it proceeds is that we don't sit back and say, we have more gardens and we have more farms and we have policy that broadly supports urban agriculture, so we don't need to think about the structural power imbalances that let some people have privilege and others not have privilege. Let some people decide for themselves what they want to grow and eat, and others don't get to do that. Some get to own land and others don't. There are many, many examples. And so my hope and my vision for a better urban agriculture system is one that takes seriously the power structures that create inequity, and then from there takes steps to address that so that we have a truly more just system.